no emotion, a job and a mission that needs to be completed.
And as soon as it broke out, I was over on the other side and I go, I know exactly what that is.
The atmosphere in the world of professional boxing has always been a volatile mix of calculated theater and raw, unbridled aggression. However, there are moments when the performance ends in a much darker,
Completely different animal, but in terms of memories,
I thought it was a bitch move. I really did.
Have you spoken?
I would never. If you chin someone at a presser, if you do that, it's different. But when
more personal reality takes over. The recent clash between Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul was supposed to be a spectacle of contrasting worlds.
And he took it! Jake Paul took it! Oh, the right hand right! Oh!
Even if he does land his best shot at the moment, not that much is going to happen.
And it almost, oh, there's a left hook. Oh!
The polished traditional heavyweight champion versus the disruptive, brash presence of the influencer-turned-pugilist. Yet, what unfolded in the squared circle went far beyond the typical promotional hype. Beneath the surface of the televised broadcast, a single, silent act of disrespect reportedly altered the trajectory of the fight and, perhaps, the legacy of both men involved. For years, Anthony Joshua has been defined by his composure, his almost stoic adherence to the sweet science, and a public persona built on discipline. But even the most disciplined warriors have a breaking point. In the aftermath of the bout, whispers began to circulate about a moment the cameras missed, a moment where the technical battle became a personal vendetta. Joshua himself has finally broken his silence, revealing that the catalyst of the sudden, ruthless shift in his performance was profound breach of ring etiquette. According to the former champion, Jake Paul did more than just throw punches. He crossed a line of human decency by spitting on Joshua during a clinch.
Unfortunately, there is going to be there needs to be an inquiry straight after this. Why, what? But that's what I'm hearing. This news is as fresh to me as it is you. I'm quite sure when this goes out, it'll be all over the place anyway.
In that split second, the fight ceased to be about points or titles. It became about a correction of behavior. If you watch the footage with a clinical eye, scanning the frames for the exact moment the energy in the ring shifts, you can see it. There is a perceptible change in Joshua's gait, a tightening of his shoulders, and a coldness that settles over his eyes. The respect, which is the invisible foundation of any professional bout, evaporated instantly. Joshua stopped boxing and started hunting. The pressure he applied doubled, the rhythm of his movement became predatory, and the punches began to land with a weight that suggested a desire to do more than just score. It was a visceral reaction to an indignity that the sport of boxing, for all its violence, does not condone. The repercussions of this act were immediate and devastating. Those who have spent their lives in the orbit of the ring, like Alexander Usyk, have noted that actions inside the ropes carry an inherent weight of consequence. Usyk's perspective on the matter is simple yet profound. One must think before they act because the ring is an unforgiving place to try and justify a mistake after the damage is already done. This philosophy was mirrored in Joshua's response. Once the provocation occurred, the outcome became unavoidable. The ruthless animal that critics have often accused Joshua of suppressing was unleashed, leaving Jake Paul with no room to breathe, no space to retreat, and ultimately, no way to survive the onslaught. The boxing community's reaction to these revelations has been one of collective shock. Johnny Nelson, a man whose life has been dedicated to the nuances of fighter behavior, expressed a level of surprise that bordered on genuine concern. Nelson doesn't see this as standard pre-fight trash talk or the typical antics used to sell pay-per-views. He sensed something deeper and more corrosive boiling underneath the surface. When a figure as seasoned as Nelson suggests that the situation demands a formal inquiry, it elevates the incident from a mere ringside scuffle to a crisis of conduct. His insight suggests that the disrespect shown by Paul wasn't just a tactic. It was a fundamental misunderstanding of the world he had entered. This sentiment was echoed by others who had stood in the heat of the heavy-hitting spotlight. Francis Ngannou, a man who knows exactly what it means to transition between worlds of combat, looked back on the footage and saw the inevitability of the finish. He recognized the intent behind the actions. When a fighter of Ngannou's caliber admits that a certain moment made him realize a competitor was cooked, it underscores the psychological finality of Joshua's dominance. One intentional act of disrespect flipped a switch in Joshua, and from that point forward, the fight was no longer a contest. It was an execution of skill against a man who had suddenly realized he was out his depth. While the fight itself may have lacked the constant fireworks or the excitement that casual observers crave, the true narrative was found in the surgical control Joshua maintained. Every movement was a testament to his precision. Even if the spectacle lacked the frantic pace of a lower-weight bout, the sheer power and intent behind Joshua's fists were undeniable. He wasn't playing a game. He wasn't there to provide a highlight reel for a social media personality. He was there to enforce a standard. The reactions from fellow fighters, including Israel Adesanya, capture that sense of awe. The knockout wasn't just a punch. It was a statement. It was a lesson in discipline and the immediate, brutal price of arrogance. Promoter Eddie Hearn, who has navigated the careers of the world elite, highlighted a critical friction point: the gap between boxing's deep-rooted culture and the influencer era's lack of boundaries. He noted that Jake Paul's stubbornness and his apparent disregard for rules and traditions of the business led him into a trap of his own making. In the heavyweight division, authority is not given. It is taken and defended. When Paul challenged the boundaries of professional conduct, Joshua didn't just find him irritating. He found him offensive to the craft itself. The response was a correction that reinforced Joshua's position at the top of the food chain. There is also the financial reality of the situation, a point Johnny Nelson hasn't been shy about addressing. For a long time, the narrative around Jake Paul has been one of cashing out, taking high-profile, high-reward fights against aging legends or smaller opponents. But getting into the ring with a prime, focused, and insulted Anthony Joshua is a different proposition entirely. No amount of money or marketing hype can prepare a person for the physical and mental dominance of a true heavyweight champion who feels his honor has been slighted. This knockout may very well serve as the ultimate reality check, proving that there are some arenas where clout cannot save you from the inescapable repercussions of your actions. The escalation of the tension was also analyzed by Dave Coldwell, who pointed out that the moment physical boundaries were crossed outside of the actual striking of the match, such as touching a man's face or the alleged spitting, the line was not just touched, it was obliterated. Boxing is a sport of controlled aggression, but it relies on a mutual understanding that the violence is professional. When that becomes personal, the rules of engagement change. Joshua's reaction wasn't loss of control. It was a calculated decision to end the disrespect with the only language the ring understands: overwhelming force. Even Tyson Fury, a man rarely silenced by the chaos of the boxing world, seemed shaken by the sheer intensity of what transpired. His admission that the events were shockingly terrible provides a unique window into the gravity of the situation. When the most seasoned veterans of the sport are left shaking the cobwebs after witnessing a performance and its aftermath, it confirms that what happened between Joshua and Paul was an